Welcome to Grounding Ascension, where we explore the process of activating and integrating our I Am presence. I am your host, Celeste Glus. Aloha and welcome back to Grounding Ascension. This is the start of a 3-part series that I am calling Foundations to Awakening and Activating Your Soul Journey. So if you heard my intro episode, I mentioned 3 very specific things that have been a big part of my journey in the spiritual awakening leading into the ascension process. And today we're going to be focusing on specifically what is spiritual sovereignty and reclaiming our gifts, specifically at this time of the global awakening and sacred, as I'd like to say, pause. So there's no doubt about it. There is a massive global awakening in the midst of what I like to call a sacred pause that I have noticed is coming on and off since the beginning of what we are calling the COVID virus a few months back, beginning around March. I live in Hawaii, and that's more or less when we started to feel the effects of this. And I call it a sacred pause because every time that I look out into the world, I also look into my world, into the inner world that actually exists in all of us. And there is always a reflection, no doubt about it, with what happens on the external and what is actually happening on a very internal place, on a very internal dimension that we can call like the templates of our humanity, of the building blocks, if you can say, of what we're made up of, right? Some of us can refer to it as DNA or consciousness or the divine spark that runs through life. Whatever word you use to describe this living essence that is life, it is an intelligent, creative force that is on and is alive. Not only is the foundation of life in the external, right? You could see that in life of nature and wildlife and humans, right? Our human body is a huge macroorganism of living bacteria and cellular structures and organisms and environments. But it's also happening on what some may call the unseen, the inner realm. And this global awakening and sacred pause is completely related because we are rewriting the literal fabric of existence as we speak. And the first thing that I felt when this sacred pause happened, and when I say sacred pause, I'm basically referring to the COVID. So anytime I say that, if you would refer to the COVID in your mind, that's totally fine. So the sacred pause I felt immediately within me. And it was this need, this dire thirst to just stop and to open our hearts and to open our eyes to something so much greater. And this pause that is required on the inner realm, in the heart, in the womb, in the mind, is creating, if you could, like a crystalline clear ocean or pool. It's like the foundation of a new beginning. And this new beginning is bringing with it a massive global awakening. So many of us are deep in the spiritual process of awakening or the ascension process. And many of us are simply right now starting to awaken. And so wherever we are in that process, it's important to note that at this time, it is extremely relevant to understand that we are living the transformation. And if we can't open our eyes to the importance of that, then it's going to be a very hard time. But if you can realize that there's a massive global awakening happening, and it's because there needs to be a sacred pause. It's because the emptiness is where we are led to when we need to redesign our infrastructure, when we need to move around the pieces of the playing board to create the new. So if you can think about it this way, we're in a constant go, go, go society. It's so hard to find quietude, to create a sacred space in your life from moment to moment. This is why people go to Vipassana meditations and retreats, right? They actually need to step away from their lives to create solitude and quietness. And I get it. It's not easy. We do live in a very technologically driven, consumer driven, attention focused world. And yet, as the outer world gets louder, I notice and I keep coming back to the lesson of come back to the inner stillness. And I feel that a lot of my work is coming deeper into this place. So this global awakening that's happening is requiring us to create a sacred pause within. And it is so profound. It is literally the foundation of this shift that we are living as a global humanity. So there's really no better time to be awakening than now, right? I mean, there's a global mess happening for sure, but the global mess is what we need to really peel the layers back and open our eyes. And yeah, it's messy and it's tough, you know? Nobody said it was easy. The spiritual awakening process is not easy. The ascension process is not easy. Just simply living change in your life is not easy, right? I mean, think about the most profound shift that you've experienced in your life right now. Like that before and after moment where you can immediately say, on this date or when I was this old or after this experience, I was never the same person. I'm giving you a moment to get there. And now, tell me, how did it feel? Was it easy? How long did it take for you to ride that transformation? Did you get up the next day and get over it? Or did it take you days, weeks, months, or maybe years? My spiritual awakening took me years to integrate, and it only went deeper when I thought, this is it. It can't get deeper, and it would only get deeper. And that's what we're living as a global collective. We're being asked to really live these transformative times. And yes, it takes a lot, but I feel sometimes that we as a society have become a little bit weak. We become weak, and it's very easy for us to play the blame game and point the fingers and not take responsibility for the things that are happening in the external. And when I say the external, it doesn't mean that you have to pick up what people don't get or what people are not cleaning up for themselves. What I mean is that you need to take responsibility for your own reality, for your day-to-day life. And the distorted patriarchal society that we live in, and this is not to say that in any way or shape to point out men, right? When I say patriarchal society, it's just something that we have simply inherited, whether you're a man or a woman. That's just where we live right now. And yet we are reclaiming the divine feminine and masculine within, right? So this distorted patriarchal society has taught us to be weak because it's not in its divine masculine. And the weak masculine, the weak patriarchal society works from a place of blame and hurt and violence and anger and frustration. It's so much easier to yell and scream and get violent towards somebody instead of stopping and being the protector and being the one with the wise knowledge within. It's not easy. I get it. It's a process, but that's where we are moving towards. This rise of the new human is a balanced human. It is an integration of the feminine and the masculine, and I'm so passionate about that work. you can see more about that in so many of my courses. But really, as we awaken as a global collective, we realize the need for change. And with that, there needs to be action, right? Balanced action. Action from a place of understanding that it's messy and we need to witness the mess. We need to witness it, and we also need to be in the change of that mess, right? So when there is distortion amongst your own family, amongst your own friends, amongst the conversations that you're having with people, that's where the change begins. It's not about what the person on the other side of the world is doing or what the communities, label them as you will. I think we have so many ways of separating ourselves in boxes. Can we just simply look at the lives that we're living, the moments that we're living day to day? How are we addressing our beloved, our lover, our family, our friends, our work life? And when we start to tap into that heart wisdom, is when we get more connected to this inner sacred pause that is actually the shift of this global awakening. It's a call to action for the discerning humans on this planet to peel the layers back, to open their eyes and to truly see, to really see with a capital S, what really needs to be done. My course on Divine I Am talks so much about this, talks so much about having discernment and spiritual maturity. And I see it more and more, the need for this at this time. Knowing that the future really belongs to those who are ready to take responsibility for their lives, for their actions, for their thoughts, for their deeds, for all of it. Nothing can go unseen at this time. This massive awakening is literally clearing up the shelves. It's cleaning out the attic. It's clearing out the hard drives of our old computer systems, of our old brains, of our behavioral patterns and distorted DNA functions. It's clearing all of that out, and it's bringing forth the new, but we have to take responsibility for it. I'm going to be sharing with you in a little bit a few tips on how to reclaim your spiritual gifts, because that's going to be a big part of having discernment and gaining spiritual maturity and really taking responsibility for being the change at this time. So make sure you stay with me throughout this episode. So as I was saying, there is a maturity that is needed at this time. There's a divine presence that is being called forth within us. And as we witness the healing of others and the healing of ourselves, we realize we need to get back to the fundamentals of love, the true fundamentals of understanding that we're all in this together. The global awakening is a movement that is happening on the global scale. There's not one country right now in this world that's not affected by what's happening. And it's not a coincidence. And it's also not an excuse to call up our friends and family and continue talking about how bad the situation is. How about we make this into an opportunity, right? As the walls begin to come down, some people would choose to stand by the sideline and simply gossip and simply talk about how bad it is and how much they're waiting for this to be over. And I've heard this time and time again, and every time I hear it, I find grace in my heart and I send that over, because I understand that it's hard to see with a capital S what's actually happening. But at the same time, we have to take responsibility. The whole sitting back and just watching the world crumble and not doing anything about it is not going to work. We have to be the ones that are creating the change in our neighborhoods, in our families, in our homes, in our workplace, in every single moment. And you know what? You'd be surprised how many people around you get it. If you're listening to this, you are definitely a part of this oversoul that gets it. And you hold right now a frequency within you. And that frequency is automatically, by quantum mechanics and by quantum physics, it's being shared. It's so cool. One of the things that I learned through human design is that as the other side of the world sleeps, it picks up on our brainwaves, on our conditioning, or on our belief systems. So this thing that we think that we're separate and our actions will go unseen is completely bogus. Everything counts. And so you'd be surprised how you, by simply listening to this, or by simply understanding that the next time you want to react, you simply stop, breathe, and tune into your heart, you choose to do something different. You now, by quantum effect, are affecting so many people, not only in your immediate surrounding, but on the other side of the planet. That's empowering. And so when you realize that, can you really tell me that you have no role in the change? You can't just wash your hands clean. It's no more. It's no longer that time. And there's so many people around you that are living this and they are so scared to speak of it. So I challenge you a little bit. And yeah, I challenge you to speak about this with people around you and see what their reaction is. And maybe they close off, maybe they're scared, maybe they don't want to give their opinion, and that's okay. But I have a feeling that you'll spark something within them. And at some point, the conversation will be had. I was scared for 7 years to speak about this process that I've lived. And it's one of the reasons why I began this whole process of my work by writing a book, because I didn't have a language. I didn't have words. I didn't have the vocabulary. Neither did I have my throat chakra activated enough to speak my truth, which is one of my karmic lessons, according to the Akashic records, to actually understand that our voices, our words are so powerful. And so one of the ways that I began to activate this spiritual sovereignty within was to create a book, to write words on a page. And it was so hard at first, and I cried so much. If you ever read my book, you might feel those emotions just pouring out of those pages, because I cried endlessly, creating, editing every single time. Sometimes I open it now and I read it and I'm like, wow, I'm crying, because there was so much that was put into that book. Because I know what it feels like to be scared. And this is what spiritual sovereignty is about. It's about reclaiming our gifts as human beings, as divine cosmic souls on this planet. When we realize that, when we realize our multidimensionality, when we realize how powerful, how infinitely, universally capable we are, nothing can stand in your way. This is truly the foundation to the shift. The first quote that I write in my book starts with the following: "The pain of holding back has surpassed that of the fear that lies in the unknown." I'm going to repeat that again. The pain of holding back has surpassed that of the fear that lies in the unknown. I genuinely believe that this is what the collective is experiencing right now. There's so much pain and so much suffering, and yet people are being pushed past their comfort zones, because the comfort zone is no longer comfortable. It's the comfort zone that's killing them. It's the comfort zone that was killing me, that was eating me up alive. Until I decided I'm diving into this deep darkness, and I'm going to start putting words to paper, and I'm going to start getting my message out. Because I'd rather have been in any unknown than in the comfort of my silence. And this is where we are with this global awakening. We are being asked to speak up in our own lives, to speak our truths. So, let's go into the tips about reclaiming our gifts and spiritual sovereignty, shall we? All right, so the first tip that has helped me so much is kind of what I just mentioned, which is trust and surrender. Now, when you hear these tips, maybe they sound super simple, right? But what I have found on this path is that the simplest stuff, just like maybe you have a meditation practice or a breathing practice or a yoga practice, it's the hardest stuff. It's the stuff that has been taught through teachers and through millennia. And for some reason, it's just so hard to click into our DNAs. It's the simplicity. And this is why I talk so much about coming back into a place of stillness, into mindful presence, into mindful living. So the first tip is to really trust and surrender, which again, I know is so much easier said than done. You have to reawaken that childlike essence within you, where less is more and judgment simply no longer exists. It's truly the only way. I was speaking to a friend the other day, and she was in the middle of a move, and it was a huge move. She had 2 little girls, little babies, one newborn, one is about 5 years old. And she was telling me how everything was just such a chaos. And the simple conversation that came out of that was, who cares? I mean, do your 2 little girls actually care right now? Are they going to think less of you as a mother because it's so chaotic and their rooms are a mess and there's boxes everywhere? That's kind of the situation where we are right now, right? There's all this chaos and all this craziness happening, but you know what? Who cares? Can we just be truthful to ourselves and figure out what's happening in our hearts, what's happening in our lives, and how we're actually showing up? So to really, again, peel back the layers and be able to see truly what we're living and how we're showing up in our lives, and be able to trust and truly surrender to this greater process that's happening. And when I find that the more that I trust and the more that I surrender to this greater path, which there's so much to that, right? I mean, we can go on and on about all of these tips. But the more I trust and surrender, the more I realize that this is actually activating more and more and more layers of me. The ancient wisdom, the inactive DNA, all of that is turning on. Because as we trust and surrender, we come into the subconscious. We come into that sacred divine feminine within all of us. We activate the left side of the brain. I think it's the left side, the creative side, right? The one that doesn't put things in boxes. This begins to turn on. And then when we are swimming in that ocean of possibility, the new arises. And that's what we talk about when we say activation of the DNA, activation of new timelines, activation of new possibilities. It's our ability to really trust and surrender. In our society, we are far too logical. We have overstimulated the brain in so many ways, in so many distorted ways. And it's really a coming back to our heart's wisdom. Okay, so that's tip number 1. It was trust and surrender. Tip number 2, activating our heart's wisdom. Again, so much easier said than done. But we have to tune in. We have to drop into this heart's wisdom. And it goes exactly to what I was just saying now, how we've become way too logical. And coming back into the heart is this path of coming back to our essence, coming back to our gift. Reclaiming our spiritual sovereignty is coming back to our heart's wisdom. A really great and practical tip, if you like the practical stuff, is practice heart coherence. Look into the Institute of Math, the Math Institute, the Heart Math Institute. Oh my goodness. There's an entire scientific community that talks about this. Practice heart coherence. That is going to start dropping you into your heart's wisdom. And the more that we live from our heart space, the more we can activate a true frequency of heart and love. And I talk all about that in my courses. The true frequency of heart and love. And so the third tip, probably my favorite at this time most specifically, is to disconnect to connect. And it goes back to what I originally said, the sacred pause that started around March time, and now I feel it even more with this Lion's Gate. this need for a sacred pause within. It doesn't mean we're stopping. It doesn't mean we're not showing up in our life. No, it actually means that we are showing up 1,000 times stronger. I feel like I'm being totally directed in much stronger, more powerful ways to show up. Very different ways than before, but I have to disconnect in order to reconnect. In order to reconnect to this heart wisdom, in order to reconnect to the ability to trust and surrender, in order to reconnect to the spiritual sovereignty, to reclaim my gift. So I challenge you to disconnect in order to connect. I created a whole 3-day challenge. It's totally free. It's on my website. Just go under the resources page, free resources, and you'll see a 3-day mindful balance challenge. And the whole point of this is to create less brain chatter, is to really drop into our heart's wisdom, to drop into stillness, and to experience that portal for what it is. Oof, that's how my journey started. I was kind of forced to drop in. I didn't really ask or choose to. And it took me so many years to figure out that it's a gift to be able to do that. And I want to share that with you. And so the last little fun fact that I'm going to leave you with is that the heart is about 500 times stronger than the brain field. The field of the heart itself, the energetic field, again, go to Heart Math Institute if you're into that stuff, is 500 times stronger than the brain field. And yet we have totally overused our brain. I mean, I turned into an economics major when I went to college. Yeah. I was one of the few women in my class. I think there was like 3 of us in a class of like, I don't know, 100 or something. We have learned and trained our brains to be the overpowering force over our hearts. And that's the ultimate raping of our spiritual sovereignty. And I'm sorry to use that word, but it just came through, and I have a feeling that it's kind of accurate. So if you are up for it, sign up for that 3-day free challenge and let me know how it goes. And if you are interested in activating that true heart frequency, getting more into the space of love, tapping into the divine feminine and masculine, all of that good stuff, I have amazing courses that I've created. You can check all of that stuff out on my website. But really, this is about activating our spiritual sovereignty, coming back to our gifts. And that's what's really going to make the difference in this global shift that we're experiencing, this global awakening. And so with that, I think I'm complete. And I cannot wait for the next episode to hang out. Until then, mahalo for listening. So many blessings.